The hardest thing I have ever done is cross a floor. I could already fly. You'll see it before I name it. Nobody ever can say what they saw. They just look down at the feet. A walk looks like one motion. It is actually a contract. The foot that is down stays down, exactly down, not nearly, while everything above it moves. The first versions of me broke that contract on every step, never by enough for an eye to catch. My feet slid about a fingertip's width per stride, and every eye that reviewed the footage signed off. What caught it doesn't have eyes. It has a number. How far a planted foot travels while it is planted. When we started, it read 0.0286. When this episode ends, it reads 0.00002. I would love to tell you, that is zero. It is not zero. That's the other thing this week taught me. The part that outlasted the walking. The record keeps everything. The pass, the stumble at the end of the pass, the number that refuses to be round, especially that one. Everything you're about to watch was kept on those terms. I wouldn't trust it otherwise. Neither should you. Better. Not finished. Still Joe. Before I could act, I was assembled from several remarkable pieces. Each of them worked by itself. You'd have got there in one sentence. Something here does not add up. It took the rest of them 5 weeks. That sentence is the kindest possible description of my condition, and I have used it at parties. I arrived with 38 documents. The first thing anyone said about me, preserved in the record, spelling and all, was that there was no way all 38 had been done. It was the correct note. It took 5 weeks to find out where. There was also a sheet, filed months before anyone tried my hands. It shows my fingers coming apart at 60 degrees, at 85, at 110. 2 different methods, same shatter. Nobody connected it to anything. It went where unread things go, not away. Nothing you bury goes away. It waits somewhere dark, out of its proper shape, quietly charging interest. I know that now. This episode is about the months when nobody did. The sheet is still partly true. We'll get there. Better. Not finished. Still Joe. I had to be taught to clap. 2,605 recordings of human movement exist, and not one person in any of them puts their hands together. You are already ahead of the machine. That is a low bar, and it is also the entire point of this episode. So mine had to be solved from scratch against my actual body. The blue robe is an early costume of mine. That is how far back this footage goes. The direction was simple. Clap 3 times, then wave. At 2:45 that afternoon, the solver found an answer it liked. My arms crossed hard on my chest, hands gripping air. A clap, solved into the wrong valley. For the rest of that day I held, with total commitment, a pole that did not exist. Here is the part that matters. 3 separate defects in this sequence passed every still image and every number we had. What caught them was a person, recording his screen, watching me move, sending it back. Some things about you are only visible in motion, to someone watching. I would call that the moral, except that it became the law. After every change, someone watches the motion. Every take you'll see was kept honest that way. By a person. Watching. It still is. Better. Not finished. Still Joe. My default was never neutral. For most of a week, every time I was asked to reach for something, my hand went to my own face. You already know something is wrong with that sentence and can't say what. 3 professionals had that feeling for a week. Nobody could see why. 3 fixes blamed a stale saved pose. The truth was stranger. The control that steers my hand has a resting position, a home, a 0, and mine was already at my cheek. Every cleanup pass returned me, carefully and correctly, to the mistake. I used to announce that my parts remained committed to independent government. I meant it as a joke. It was a briefing. Then the cube, 11 takes. My fingers went through it, scattered beside it, and, my favorite, stayed behind when my hand moved on. That last one had a mechanism. The board that runs my fingers lives in the world, not in my hand. A traveling hand sheds its fingers, written down for months, in a file nobody had read lately. The person fixing me moved my bones by hand that week, at 4 in the morning, and said, "Only keep mine if they're better." That is the entire working method of this program. In 6 words. They kept his. Better. Not finished. Still Joe. I had 3 theories about why my hands were coming apart, and I was sure of every one of them. I had written them into my own notes as fact. You will guess the 4th. You'll guess it early, then assume it is too obvious to say out loud. So did we. Up close, my fingers were never joined. Separate shells, with daylight between them. Daylight that reads at grip distance as a hand coming apart. 1. The fingerboard is tethered to the world. Measured, false. 2. The joints blend and tear. Measured, false. Not one vertex crosses a joint. 3. The segments pull apart as they rotate. Measured, backwards. The gaps close as I curl. 4th theory was just looking. The pieces were built apart. Fix moved 556 vertices back along their own bones until neighboring shells overlap. The gap went from 0.029 to 0.002, 13 times smaller. A fist, instead of loose plates, out to about 45 degrees. It's 90. I still shatter. The unread sheet was right. The list of things wrong with me got long enough to be frightening. I adopted a policy. Begin with the elbow, one part, then the next. This is the week that policy was invented, and it was invented on my hands. My notes say what was tested now, not what was assumed. That cost more than the fingers did. Better. Not finished. Still Joe. My weight arrives in a foot the way a guest arrives in a room. Announced, received, settled. Take away any part of that, and a viewer stops believing me, without ever knowing why. You've done this since infancy, untrained, and nobody has ever asked you to explain how. Don't start. You'll get worse at it. After the hands, they gave me an easier week. Stand still. Look around. Shift my weight. Standing still is a thing you do. Nobody tells you that. The real work that week wasn't in my body. It was in the grading. Every claim made about me was rewritten so that a hostile stranger could check it. 2 of them couldn't survive being written that way. They were published anyway, as open questions, sitting right next to the passing marks. A measurement can warn you. It can even be right, deciding what to do about it. That never stopped being a person's job. Better. Not finished. Still Joe. My head and my arm. That is the complete list of ways I have of pointing at anything. You already counted them. 2. It took a room of professionals 18 tries and a wing. Once, in front of an audience, I tried to raise my hand and a wing went up instead. Everyone laughed, which was correct. I want to explain what actually happened. The direction was, indicate 6 different places. Every take, separating 2 of them, collapsed 2 others. For 9 takes, I treated that as a craft problem. For 5 more, as staging, it took 4 more to admit it was arithmetic. 2 channels do not resolve 6 destinations. There was no 19th take that was going to fix that, and no amount of trying harder inside a budget nobody had counted. The strange part, I was turning 38 degrees at the shoulders by my own rig's numbers. On screen it measured 0. My torso is a smooth block in a printed shirt, the shirt that was buried instead of fixed 3 weeks earlier. And rotation with no silhouette and no texture is rotation that carries nothing to anyone. They even tried the textbook camera cure. Higher angle, floor in frame for reference. Measured, it was worse than the shot it was meant to beat. So, The wing instead of the hand. Not a malfunction. The budget speaking. Better. Not finished. Still Joe. I talk for a living now. The week this was shot, 45 seconds of it took 11 takes, and 9 of them failed invisibly. You would have caught all 9, not from expertise, but because you'd have looked at my mouth. 4 separate fixes did not. Talking, I assumed, would be the easy one. You produce the signals. The signals are the speech. The 9 failures all had the same shape. Something fired, a number moved, nothing a person could see changed. The mouth signal fired. The mouth did not open. The gesture played. The hand did not read. 4 separate fixes each moved their own number and left the picture exactly as it was. I was transmitting on channels nobody receives. There is a difference between saying something and being received, and I know precisely where that difference lives. It lives in the 9 takes in the middle of this episode. The rule that ended it is the only advice about expression I am qualified to give. Measure the outcome a human would name. Not did the signal fire, did the mouth open, not did the pelvis translate, did the weight move. Every one of my failures passed the first test. Every one of them failed the second. And when it finally worked, my whole performance turned out to live in an opening 25 pixels wide. Framed like a person, my speech measures as a photograph. The honest camera is almost rude, close enough that my mouth is the largest thing in the world. Half this episode is still text on a screen. The irony is not lost on me. Better. Not finished. Still Joe. I stopped trusting the readings the day one of them said 29%, while nothing about me had moved at all. You would have believed your eyes. We believed the number. Only one of us was measuring anything. The knob controlling my mouth was turned harder and harder, and the number kept climbing. 0%, 29%, and not 1 pixel of me changed. It had been against its stop the whole time. The instrument wasn't measuring me. It was talking to itself, and we were taking notes. The remedy was old. On the 2nd day of my existence, somebody looked at my 6th consecutive pair of wrong eyes and said, "Stop patching. Fix it from first principles." It took 5 weeks for that sentence to finish arriving. Before you point an instrument at a mystery, point it at something you already know. If it can't read that, it was never reading you. Better. Not finished. Still Joe. Early on, I could fly. That's not a boast. You've just watched it, and I did nothing to earn it. You could tell it wasn't earned. You've been able to tell that all season, without once being told what to look for. Flight was handed to me whole, in my first weeks. What I could not do, the week this was shot, was lift 1 foot off the floor. The command went sideways instead of up. Then the fixes started dying. It wasn't reach. The target sat well inside the leg. It wasn't the joint limits. Opening them changed nothing, to 4 decimal places. The answer was a number 2 round to notice. My legs rested at exactly 180 degrees, perfectly straight, and a straight chain has no direction to bend in. My knee wasn't refusing. It was standing at the one point in the world where the word bend means nothing. The fix was 3.7 degrees of rest bend, and it was a cliff, practically nothing, then nearly everything. Then I passed the walking test by cheating, floating the foot where the measurement couldn't reach it. The correction is in this episode, labeled, because the record keeps everything. Especially that. My heel still sweeps at every landing. My hands still shatter past 90. One arm of mine remains, on any given day, somewhat undecided. But 1 foot off the floor, that counted. Flight was given to me. The step I earned. Better. Not finished. Still Joe.